How's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode 3 of the Chop. Today we have a special guest, and I'd like to let him introduce himself.
How's it going, guys? My name is Juan Pablo. I go by JP. I was born and raised in Argentina, Patagonia. I moved here around the age of 16. Ever since, I've been living in Littleton, moved here to Fort Collins to study at CSU. And yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Word. Wancho, did you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what RGR means to you and maybe some of your grinds?
Yeah, I think RGR, like I've heard y'all talk about in your recent podcast, I think a lot of it has to do with this whole idea that it's not only about the gym, and that really affected me because at first I did think it was all about the gym, this whole idea, right? But as I started really thinking about it, the more and more I realized is that it applies to everything, right? And for me personally, one of my grinds, something that really motivates me is fly fishing. I've been doing it for a long time now, and yeah, it's one of those things where even in the hardest moments of my day, or even in time, I can always go out there, do my thing, grind for it, and at the end of the day, it feels super rewarding, right? So it's this constant grind that I find myself progressing and working on myself.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of what you just spoke about is gonna touch on what we want to talk about today in this podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Something that was really crucial that we wanted to talk about is taking a step back, and analyzing what you're doing. Honestly, we even encourage that.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think just stepping back, analyzing what you're doing, why you're doing it. The whole reason you are there, asking that why is huge, and not being afraid to take a step back. Also, don't get ahead of yourself. I mean, let everything come in time. It's something I truly believe in, and I think even with this whole deal of the podcast and RGR, I feel like I just waited, stayed patient, didn't want to get ahead of myself, and kind of just wanted to let things fall into place and kind of just let it all happen naturally, and everything. Just kind of let it pave its own path. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and even going off that, I mean, one of the main things that I always applied to my life, and I'm pretty sure y'all as well, is that this whole idea that everybody has their own time, right? That not everybody, does the same thing at the same stage of their life. We see it time and time over, people making this idea that, oh, when I'm 21, I have to be, out of college, getting a job, doing this, and this, and this. And I mean, you just perfectly said it with RGR. I think if you patiently wait for that moment and really seize the opportunity when it comes, then you're way better off than rushing things in the first start. Which I think is crucial.
I think you got it.
I was going to say, just tying into going back to analyzing what you're doing. We all analyze ourselves. We're all critics of ourselves, and we compare ourselves to others. So when we think we should be doing certain things at certain times and we're not, we start to down ourselves and things like that. But I think it's important to see that when you're progressing through whatever it is that you're working with, whatever your grind is, the whole point of taking that step back and looking back is seeing your specific path. It's not about comparing it to other people's paths.
Yeah.
It's about seeing the path that you took, reflecting on that, and just learning from that path. See what went well, what turns led you to greater places, what turns took you maybe to a less better place, and just incorporate that as you move forward.
I like that, like you said, about not comparing yourself. I think that's huge, just because I think you need to be unique. When you grow up, everyone's like, oh, I want to be LeBron James, you want to be these superstars, you want to be these celebrities. But I think as you grow up, you start to develop, you need to be yourself. You need to be you. Don't compare yourself to anyone. Just because he made all this money in 2 years, you might not do the same, but you can't compare yourself to them. You have to know your own worth. Everything's at your own pace. And like I said, that stepping back, analyzing, and just doing stuff on your own time.
I think that even grants you the ability, when you have the capacity to step back and analyze what you've been through, you get the sense of maybe even the mistakes you made, but those mistakes help you in the future realize what you did wrong and progress from that.
Yeah.
So I think to a certain extent, stepping back, analyzing not only the positive things, but the negative things can influence you in such a way that you can't even imagine, right? Because I think that a lot of times when people think of this introspective mentality, you start to realize that they start doubting the steps they took and what they did in their life and what led them to where they are right now. But the reality is that every step, whether it's a bad one or a good one, is still a step, right? So you're still moving forward. So instead of sitting back and really attacking yourself for it, might as well take it in a positive way and do something with it, right? So this whole idea behind stopping and analyzing can be amazing for you, because once you start seeing that reflection on yourself and improving on yourself, man, that's like a huge change.
Yeah. I mean, I think reiterizing something like Mikey C always says, I love it. He says, action cures everything. So I think the first step to that is taking that step back, analyzing it, those positives, the negatives, you know, taking that constructive criticism, all that deal, and then taking action with all that. Like, take it all in, but then do something about it. Right. Like, take those comments and what people said and change it, or like respond to them and tell them why, like maybe like why you can't change it, you know. But like, just be open and truthful with what you're gonna say and who you are.
Yeah,
I think it's huge.
No, there's two things I kind of wanted to touch on that you just spoke about. Going back to what Mikey C says, shout out to Mikey C, you know,
the boy.
You guys will be here. About action cures everything. You're saying how, you know, reflecting on yourself is important in that action. When you take that action to cure whatever you're curing, the step that you take back when you're analyzing yourself, that's what's going to help you take your action in the future. Because when you're taking that step back to analyze, you're gathering information about, you know, whatever just happened, what practices you have that are working well, what practices you have that aren't working well. And those are the things that you will use moving forward when you take that action to cure whatever is going on. You know?
And the craziest part too, just listening to what you're saying, if you think about the whole idea of the path itself, right, not just the moment, and this whole mentality that we have, that it's only about the reward at the end and not about the process in the middle. And I think RGR really speaks for that as well, right? Like the rise, grind, repeat. You rise every day, you grind, and you repeat. You don't think about the end process, because as soon as you think about the end process, you're not going to enjoy the journey throughout it, right? But this whole idea that throughout the journey, you're able to stop and analyze will give you the capacity to be able to enjoy the moment, right? Because if you're always thinking about the future, if you're always thinking about what's going to be over the hill, it's never going to really work for you, because you're not enjoying the walk up to the hill, right? So I think the reflecting really gives you that capacity. I really believe it does, right? And that applies even when I'm fishing, right? Like there's so many little things, right? It's not just about going out there and catching a fish. It's about the journey. It's about, you know, grabbing everything, putting everything in a cart, traveling how many hours you have to travel, and then get into a place and enjoying the beauty of the place, not just, hey, I have to catch a fish and that's the only goal, and once I catch a fish, I go home. No. And a lot of the times it's hard to change that mentality and you can apply that same concept to anything in life, right? Even with school, I just want to get my degree. Then the whole time you're in school, those 3-4 years, you're not going to enjoy it at all, right? Because you're just thinking about the degree.
Definitely. I think, like you said, living in the moment, you know, and not getting so ahead of yourself. Even shout out to Rainhaven, Joey.
Yeah, Joey, the boy.
We were talking the other day, and he said, I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'll be worried about tomorrow in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, that shit hit me deep. I was like,
some knowledge.
I was like, this just talks about like living in the present, living in the moment you are now, not worrying about tomorrow, you know, just grind, live in the moment, work your ass off in that moment, and those good things will come.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And even thinking about that, I'm a firm believer that a lot of the stuff that we surround ourselves with nowadays even are distracting us from what we truly want to do, right? So in the process of stopping it as well, you start to see those things, right? You start to see what really matters in life, what really makes you happy, because sometimes you get caught up on all these things, right? Your 8 to 5 job or all these other distractions, and you can't really be true to yourself and really understand what you want to do with your life, right? And that might be taken a little bit far, but I think it's all part of that same process, right?
Yeah. And that comes into the rise, grind, repeat. We talk about like there's so many different grinds, you know. So like, you got to do your 8 to 5, like you were saying, but like making sure that you are following those hobbies and those passions, whether it's, you know, photography, gaming, design. Like it's countless. All that, you know, like all those things are limitless. Like everything is a grind, like we always say. So I think that's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge part.
And if you don't, the weirdest part is if you don't, you get alienated, right? You start to lose yourself, right? So I completely understand for everybody out there that does an 8 to 5, that's a grind. And I'm not saying that that's a bad in any way, but I'm saying that within that grind, you got to find yourself at some point reflecting and questioning yourself and setting yourself a milestone to be able to either break through from that or even thrive in that same environment, right? So it's like that thought process that goes behind it, like,
yeah. I think what's really crucial about everything we've just said is that when you take that step back and you're looking back, you're gathering a lot of knowledge from your past, and you're just using that for your future. I mean, there's a reason why we study history in school. I mean, although history sometimes repeats itself, the thing is that we're trying to learn from history, and that's the whole point of taking a step back and analyzing what we're doing. There are a few things that you said, JP, that I wanted to kind of bring this conversation back into. You mentioned the word introspection, and you kind of talked about a little bit about looking in yourself, and kind of just essentially looking within yourself. I mean, did you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, I think we all experience it. I mean, me and you have talked about this multiple times. I think throughout one's course, especially once you grow up, and when I say grow up, I don't mean about age. I think matureness comes with like the realization of responsibility and with all these other factors. But I think that as you start to grow up, you start to question and self-doubt and self-think, all these things that pop up in one's life, right? Like I think to a certain extent, you start asking, what am I doing with my life? You start asking, how much time do I have to succeed in the area that I am?
Yeah.
So I think that it can bring many positive things, and even the negative things can be seen as positive because, as you were saying clearly, and you reinstate on that, Brevin, you learn from those things.
Yeah.
They might not seem like the best thing in the moment, right? Because sometimes you make some decisions, and then when you start, using that introspective mentality, you start to say, well, damn, if I didn't do this, then a different path could have opened for me, and I could have done something else. But I'm still a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, right?
No, I truly believe in that.
When you're using that introspective mentality, man, I think that a lot of it has to come down to how you reflect on it, how you use it for the positive. And I'm sure everybody has these reflective thoughts, and everybody thinks about themselves and what could have happened. But a crucial part to it is being positive about it, because if not, man, it can be really tough, because you can question everything. Absolutely everything in this society is questionable, right? Like, why are we here? Why are we paying this amount of money for tuition? So once you start questioning yourself, you start learning a lot about yourself and the situation you surround yourself with, and all these amazing things that I think y'all can probably build up on.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's really important, like, is to ask questions, Be curious, don't be afraid. I think, like, even growing up as a kid, like, in sports, everyone's always like, there's not, like, don't be afraid to ask a dumb question. Like, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like I was always that kid who was, like, too shy to ask, like, it's like, oh, like I still kind of am that way, even, like, we'll be in class, and I'll kind of, like, I'll have some thought in my head, like a question. I won't ask it. 2 seconds later, this man's bam, asked the question, and I'm like, damn, like, that made a lot of sense. So I think, like, even taking that and learning from that is something, like, I can better in myself. I feel like a lot of people can, of asking questions, not being afraid to ask questions, questioning whether it's like questioning yourself, what are you doing, why are you doing it, or questioning others of like what can you do, like why are we here, what can you do for me, what can I do for you, just asking those questions is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, that gave me like a perfect like brain blast of like what I've learned so much in philosophy in school, right? Like, so many people have told me, why are you studying philosophy? Like, what is that going to do for you? It's helped me so much in the most practical ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're sitting here talking about introspection. I learned about introspection from philosophy. It's the whole idea of reflecting on yourself and thinking about your own emotions, your expressions, your beliefs, all these things.
It's a necessity too, man. Like,
completely. And that's exactly what I wanted to say. One of the philosophers, that I take to heart really closely is Socrates. And people that know of Socrates, that have read Socrates, know that he said the unexamined life is not worth living. And essentially that just means that if you're not introspecting, if you're not questioning either yourself, the situation you're in, the beliefs you hold, all these things, you're essentially not living life to the fullest. You're not expressing yourself to the fullest. He stressed the importance of just questioning these things. It's not in the negative sense, like you said. It's important about that positive questioning of, okay, why do I believe in these things? Oh, that makes sense to me, and that's why I believe in these things. So this introspection is all about trying to build up on yourself.
Yeah. You know what I found even funny, just hearing you think out loud like this. You start to realize that certain things like your grind or something like that may be an outlet for you to have the possibility to have this introspective mentality. Because if I think about it in my own life, when is the moment that I have time to sit back and do what I love the most? It can be considered a grind, right? It doesn't have to be that you're just doing something all day and going all at it. There's different types of grinds.
Mhm.
But, you know, when I'm out there in the river, man, I have the possibility of sitting back and really analyzing, you know, what I'm doing with my life, where I'm going with this. And sometimes it can get, like I said before, positive or negative. But the overall idea is that if you can apart yourself from all the noise on the outside and really focus on yourself, you start to see these emerging patterns that can really make a difference for you, man. Even as you start using this introspective mentality that I think we all have in ourselves naturally. I don't think that it's something that you achieve with time or anything. I think it's something that you have to be able to get in contact with within yourself, right?
If anything, it's something you have to cultivate.
Yeah. And the beauty of something like my grind is that I can do this every single day, and I can reflect on myself every single day. Because when I'm out there, man, nobody tells me to go up river or down river, or tells me, you know, to use this fly or to do this, right? It's all myself, and I even reflect on myself. If I put a fly and it doesn't work, I take it out and I change something else, try something, move forward, go up the river, go down the river, right? So it's that constant change. You see it everywhere, and it's not only in. You know, it doesn't have to be just in your room by yourself, just sitting there thinking. It can be a form of self-expression in a certain way, right?
Like, that's one thing you said that I really want to express. Like, I feel like a lot of people get the idea that philosophers are these people who go into a dark room and just sit and do the Dave and just sit and think. You know what I'm saying?
The thinker.
That's not at all what's going on. I think I do, like, one of the places I do the most amount of my thinking is the gym. Like you said, it's where you're doing something. And for me, at least, it's my body is doing something, so my body is distracted, and that's when my mind has the most amount of time. Like, I know for me, running, like I have a lot of friends that go running and stuff. Running is a great time to think, because your body is just going, but your mind can just also run in all these different kinds of places.
100%.
And then the most important part of it is that when you're reflecting in all these things, you're seeing where you went wrong and where you can improve, you know, going upstream or downstream, changing the certain fly, all these different
things. You can apply
things.
it to everything, man. It's a mere reflection of your hobby, or your grind can be portrayed in your own life.
Yeah. I even think, like, going back to, like you said, like finding that place where it's quiet, you know, like you're in your thoughts of, like, just getting away from all those things, those questions, but, like, I feel like just getting away from all the outside distractions, you know, just isolating yourself. Like, the other day, me and him went rock climbing. And, like, I was so stressed on school, you know, like I had all this anxiety and stress, where when we went rock climbing, I wasn't thinking about school, you know. I was just so, like, everything was, like, I had my blinders on, but I was just focused on what I was doing in that moment. And that was even just such a relief. And I think with your grinds, like, the grind can be, like, I think grinds can be that thing where you have that relief, you know. You have that release of all your anxiety, your stress. Like, your grind should be something that, like, you shouldn't hate your grind. No. You know, you shouldn't hate your grind. It should be that getaway. It should be that free time where you can think, reflect, and better yourself. Because that's what the grind's about, is bettering yourself.
And they're directly correlated too. They're just like you went climbing, right? And when you went climbing for the first time, you realized at that moment that the reason you were stressed is because school and stuff. So you found an outlet, and that outlet allowed you to think. So that's like the perfect dementation of, you know, 1, 2, 3, bam, there you go. You're using that introspection mentality.
A plus B equals C. Yeah, bam.
And it can be that simple, right? So I think it's just a matter of being practicing or pushing ourselves and pushing each other to do this more. Right?
I think, like, naturally as humans, we do overthink.
Oh yeah.
You know, I feel like I think everyone can relate to that. I feel like everyone can relate to that. So, like you said, keeping it, like, simple, like simplifying things, you know, break it down. So, like, I think, like, Gary Vee in his podcast is like awesome of this. People ask him questions of, like, how can I better my company? And he literally has, like, 3 questions broken down that literally, that person's like, damn, I never thought of that. Like, I should do that. And he, like, with 3 simple questions of just analyzing yourself and, like, what you're doing can, like, give you that idea to change it and make it better.
So essentially, it's like he has 3 questions that you must ask yourself.
They're not, like, 3 set, but, like, he listens to what, like, you know, what you're doing. And, like, your company, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, so why aren't you posting more on Instagram? And then they're like, oh, well, I don't really have time. And he's like, well, why aren't you making time? You know, it's just asking those questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just so simple, you know? It's not complex. It's just like, well, why are you not doing it?
You know what the craziest part is? That, like, I think a lot of people, and I see this in my life a lot, is the fact that people will find excuses not to have to do something so easily. Your mind automatically wants to or prefers to do that because it's less work for the mind, right? So when you have that opportunity, you're like, okay, I'm just going to lean to this side, not do it, blah, 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 right? So I think when you start asking yourself those critical questions, it's when you really start making that progress, right? Because you're deviating yourself from the truth because it's easier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's all part of it.
Yeah, and what comes with that struggle of not taking the easy path and taking the hard path of introspecting, of questioning yourself, because that makes you so uncomfortable in who you are. But that's so important,
bro.
Of taking that step back and analyzing what you're doing. All these things are helping you are helping you improve, helping you learn, and just grow.
The craziest thing too is that the simplest things can lead to the most complex thoughts. Something as simple as sitting down in your room can lead to such more positive things than going all day being stressed and mad at people and mad at the world. If you can just sit down and do something so simple but so complex at the same time, it can lead to so many benefits that you can't even imagine. I mean, obviously y'all both know, but I think that a lot of the times it's easy to get caught up and as we said before, all these noises that it's hard to really see the truth behind it, right?
Yeah. I think just one thing we want to stress as we kind of wrap it up here is just like there's reflection in multiple senses in our grinds. You know? As we go through the long-term process of our different grinds, it's good to periodically step back and think about the process that you've gone through, analyze what you've been doing well, take pride in what you've done well, be thankful for those that helped you along the way. It's just so many important things about looking back on the past. Like, it's so important to learn from the past. And then along with that, the importance of introspection and not just looking back on the process itself, but looking back in yourself, why you're in the process that you're in, what's driving you to pursue that, and all these things,
I love one of the things you just said, I want to reiterate, is like looking back and being grateful for the people that have been there and supported you to get you to where you are today.
Yes.
Whether it's parents, family, friends, coaches, I think that's huge to just think back and reflect on how that person impacted you, what they did for you, and even take that and maybe echo that on others in your life, I think that's huge, just echoing all the things you've learned and that you've analyzed and reflected on and reflecting on others,
Yeah.
So taking that step back, taking all this, gaining this more knowledge from all that reflection, and then also giving back to others with all the things you've learned.
Yeah, I think it's part of growing, right? And I think the fact that we can sit here and talk about such deep things, but at the same time simple, can lead to very positive things.
Yeah.
And I always have had this mentality that success is a subjective term, and it's up to you to redefine it, right?
Define it,
So success can mean differently for everybody. So for everybody out there, you can find your own success in anything. You don't have to measure by what other people say or what other bars you see that society has put up for you, right? So just get up in the morning, rise, grind, repeat, find your grind, man, and be successful at it. I mean, that's what's most important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also wanted to, I think we have a little time. If you just wanted to touch on a little bit more of your fishing grind and what, I think, you got a little more than just fly fishing.
Yeah. So a couple of months ago, almost a year ago, I met two other guys that I think we're gonna bring him here for the podcast.
We're gonna do an official podcast with all three of them.
So Nick and Jared and I have created a website and an Instagram page. So it's basically a social media fly fishing company. It's based on conservation and ethics. It's called The Nomadic Anglers. The Instagram is Nomadic Anglers. So go check it out. It illustrates a little bit of this idea that we all have our paths and we don't have to conform to the ideals of the masses, and that you can do really what you want to do. So I think to a certain extent, it's my grind. And I want to thank y'all for inviting me here.
We'll definitely also get some links in the description for you guys. Yeah. So if you want to check out his page, we'll drop those down below.
Yeah. But we wanted to thank JP for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you for coming. Also,
I appreciate y'all.
Before we close it out, I think we just wanted to reiterate, we really appreciate the feedback that we've been getting for the last two episodes.
Always.
It's been really positive, really constructive, and overall it's just been encouraging to us, helping us keep driving towards what we want to be doing. And it just helps us know that what we're doing is the right thing, essentially.
Yeah, and it's making a difference, That's what matters to me.
RGR. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. Stay grinding.
Yep. Stay grinding.